The New York Yankees front office just dropped a bombshell that has sent shockwaves rippling through the entire baseball universe. In what might be the most audacious move of the offseason, Brian Cashman and his inner circle are reportedly ready to sacrifice their number 4 prospect, the power-hitting phenom Spencer Jones, in a blockbuster trade that could completely reshape the franchise's championship aspirations for 2025 and beyond. This isn't some half-baked rumor swirling around on social media or speculative chatter from bored reporters during the slow winter months. Multiple insider sources with direct knowledge of the Yankees' front office operations have confirmed that Cashman is actively working the phones, exploring deals that would send Jones packing in exchange for either Cody Bellinger, the enigmatic former MVP looking to return to his dominant form, or Kyle Tucker, the Houston Astros Gold Glove outfielder who represents one of the most complete players in baseball today. The stakes couldn't be higher for a franchise that has spent the better part of 2 decades chasing that elusive 28th championship. The pressure cooker atmosphere in the Bronx has reached a boiling point, with ownership, fans, and media all demanding immediate results. The days of patient rebuilding and prospect development seem to be fading into the rearview mirror, replaced by an all-in mentality that prioritizes winning now over building for tomorrow. This potential trade represents more than just a roster move. It's a philosophical statement about where the Yankees see themselves in their competitive window and how desperately they want to return to championship glory. Understanding the current state of the Yankees requires acknowledging some uncomfortable truths that have plagued this organization through recent seasons. Yes, they've consistently made the playoffs. Yes, Aaron Judge has established himself as one of the most dominant players in baseball. But when October arrives and the lights shine brightest, this team has repeatedly come up short, leaving fans frustrated and questioning whether the current construction can ever break through to win it all. The 2024 season followed a familiar and painful script. Judge carried the offensive load on his impossibly broad shoulders, posting MVP-caliber numbers that reminded everyone why the Yankees made him the face of the franchise. But when the playoffs began, the supporting cast vanished like morning fog, leaving Judge isolated and easy to pitch around. That early postseason exit stung with particular intensity because it felt so preventable, so predictable, and so maddeningly familiar to anyone who has followed this team over the past decade. The outfield situation has become an organizational embarrassment for a franchise with the Yankees' resources and championship expectations. Judge mans right field with the consistency and excellence you'd expect from a generational talent, but beyond that cornerstone, the picture becomes murky and uncertain. Giancarlo Stanton has delivered flashes of his devastating power, those moments when he connects and sends baseballs into orbit, but consistency has remained elusive. His inability to stay healthy and productive for extended stretches has left the Yankees constantly scrambling for contingency plans. The reunion with Trent Grisham addressed one immediate need, bringing back a familiar face with defensive capabilities and some offensive upside, but even the most optimistic evaluations acknowledge that Grisham alone doesn't solve the depth issues that have plagued this roster. The brutal reality facing Hal Steinbrenner and his baseball operations department is that standing still means falling behind in the ruthlessly competitive American League East. The Baltimore Orioles have emerged as a genuine powerhouse, built around young talent that's only going to get better and more expensive. Their rise from perennial doormat to division contender happened with stunning speed, and they show no signs of slowing down. The Toronto Blue Jays, when healthy, possess the kind of star power that can overwhelm opponents in a playoff series. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette represent just the tip of their offensive iceberg. Even the Tampa Bay Rays, operating with their famously modest payroll, continue finding ways to compete through innovative roster construction and player development that makes their rivals look foolish for spending 3 times as much money with worse results. The Yankees find themselves in that dangerous middle ground where their championship window is definitively open, but closing faster than anyone wants to acknowledge. Judge is in his prime years, the ones where elite players deliver their most consistent and impactful performance. Garrett Cole anchors a rotation that, when healthy, can match up against anyone in baseball. The infrastructure for winning championships exists within this organization, but the missing pieces have prevented them from capitalizing on their advantages. This creates enormous pressure on Cashman to make bold moves that address glaring weaknesses without mortgaging so much of the future that the team becomes uncompetitive when this core ages out. Spencer Jones represents everything the Yankees have tried to build through their revitalized farm system. The young outfielder absolutely demolished minor league pitching in 2024, crushing 35 home runs split between Double-A and Triple-A, while posting an eye-popping 933 OPS that had evaluators projecting immediate major league impact. His raw power grades as elite on the scouting scale, the kind of natural bat speed and leverage that can't be taught. Watching his batting practice sessions, you see balls jumping off his bat with a violence that suggests imminent stardom. Everything about his profile screams future middle-of-the-order presence for a contending team, exactly the kind of homegrown talent that franchise cornerstones are built around. But here's where the Yankees' organizational depth becomes both a blessing and a curse. Jones has nowhere to play in the Bronx, at least not in the immediate future that matters for a team trying to win now. Judge isn't moving from right field anytime soon. Stanton, despite his injury history, remains under contract and occupies another outfield spot or the designated hitter role. Any potential acquisition of Bellinger or Tucker would further clog an already crowded outfield picture. For Jones, the path to regular playing time in New York simply doesn't exist, which makes him the perfect trade chip for a front office desperate to upgrade the major league roster. The emotional complexity of the situation weighs heavily on longtime Yankees fans who remember previous eras of prospect development. There's something deeply unsettling about trading away a potential star before he ever gets a chance to wear the pinstripes in a meaningful game. It evokes memories of prospects who got away, players who became stars elsewhere while the Yankees scratched their heads wondering what might have been. But modern baseball operations demand ruthless efficiency and clear-eyed evaluation of opportunity costs. If Jones projects as a quality regular, but not a superstar, and you can trade him for an established star entering his prime years, the calculus favors making the move regardless of sentimental attachments. The Cody Bellinger situation has evolved into a fascinating subplot within this larger narrative. When he deleted that Yankees photo from his social media accounts, fans immediately panicked, interpreting the move as a sign that negotiations had collapsed and their preferred target was slipping away. The reaction was swift and emotional, with message boards lighting up with theories about what went wrong and who was to blame for the apparent failure. But sources close to the negotiations suggest a different interpretation, one that views the social media activity as part of the strategic dance that happens during high-stakes contract talks. Bellinger and his representatives understand leverage, and creating uncertainty about his destination increases their negotiating power. Bellinger represents the ideal plan A for multiple reasons that extend beyond his obvious on-field talents. The man can genuinely play multiple positions at an above-average level, providing the defensive flexibility that managers covet when constructing playoff rosters. His left-handed power bat addresses a specific need in a Yankees lineup that has leaned heavily right-handed, making them vulnerable to certain pitching matchups. His 2023 comeback season with the Chicago Cubs reminded everyone that when healthy and motivated, Bellinger remains an elite talent capable of impacting games with both his bat and glove. The championship pedigree from his time with the Los Angeles Dodgers adds another layer of value, bringing experience in high-pressure situations that younger players simply haven't encountered. The Yankees have made clear through their actions and their willingness to engage in extended negotiations that they view Bellinger as more than just another free agent target. They see him as a transformative piece who could elevate the entire roster by providing protection for Judge in the lineup and versatility throughout the defensive alignment. The financial commitment required to sign him would be substantial, pushing the payroll closer to luxury tax thresholds that ownership has historically been reluctant to cross. But the calculus has shifted as the championship drought extends and the realization sets in that half measures won't cut it anymore. If Bellinger ultimately decides to sign elsewhere or if negotiations break down irreparably, Kyle Tucker emerges as the ultimate backup plan, though calling him a backup plan feels almost insulting given his elite credentials. Tucker brings everything you want in a modern outfielder, combining Gold Glove caliber defense with consistent offensive production that ranks among the best in baseball. His ability to impact games in multiple ways through power, speed, on-base percentage, and defensive excellence makes him one of the most complete players in the sport. The fact that the Houston Astros might actually be willing to trade him speaks to their own organizational challenges and the reality that keeping every star becomes financially impossible in today's game. Joel Sherman of the New York Post, one of the most connected and reliable reporters covering the Yankees, dropped the bombshell that Cashman has explicitly told teams he's willing to include Spencer Jones in trade packages for impact outfielders. This revelation carries enormous significance because Cashman doesn't typically show his cards so clearly unless serious discussions are already underway. The willingness to part with the organization's number 4 prospect signals that this isn't exploratory phone calls or idle conversation. These are substantive negotiations with real momentum behind them. The luxury tax implications loom large over any potential deal, creating a financial subplot that matters as much as the baseball considerations. The Yankees already operate near the competitive balance tax threshold, and adding either Bellinger or Tucker would push them significantly over that line. The financial penalties for exceeding the threshold escalate with each consecutive year in the tax, creating long-term implications that stretch beyond a single season. For Hal Steinbrenner, this represents a moment of truth about his willingness to spend like his father did during the dynasty years. The fan base has questioned his financial commitment repeatedly, wondering if he possesses the same championship or bust mentality that defined the George Steinbrenner era. But here's the counter-argument that makes financial sense from ownership's perspective. Missing the playoffs entirely or suffering another early exit would cost the organization far more in lost revenue than any luxury tax penalty. Yankees fans pack the stadium and buy merchandise when the team is winning and competing for championships. They tune out and spend their entertainment dollars elsewhere when the team feels mediocre or uncompetitive. The financial calculation isn't just about avoiding tax payments. It's about maximizing revenue through sustained success and championship contention. The roster impact of landing either Bellinger or Tucker extends far beyond simply filling a hole in the outfield alignment. These additions would fundamentally transform the lineup dynamics in ways that ripple through every aspect of game strategy. Suddenly, opposing pitchers can't simply pitch around Aaron Judge in crucial situations because another legitimate threat is waiting on deck. The strategic calculus shifts dramatically when every spot in the batting order presents problems for the opposition. Aaron Boone would gain tactical flexibility that opens up numerous late-game scenarios that currently feel impossible with the roster as constructed. Imagine a playoff game where Boone needs a pinch runner in the 8th inning of a tied game, or a situation where defensive replacement becomes crucial to protecting a late lead, or those endless decisions about matchups and platoon advantages that can swing a series. Having depth and versatility doesn't just help in obvious ways. It creates margins that matter when October baseball becomes a chess match between evenly matched teams. Championship rosters differentiate themselves through their depth and their ability to execute multiple game plans depending on circumstances. The Jason Dominguez situation adds another fascinating wrinkle that most casual observers have overlooked in the broader narrative. The 22-year-old prospect, once viewed as untouchable within the organization, has seen his stock fluctuate after a season where he batted .257 with 10 home runs, but saw his playing time reduced dramatically after August. Ryan Garcia from Fireside Yankees reported that internal evaluations have cooled on Dominguez, partly due to defensive concerns and partly because the crowded outfield picture makes his path to regular playing time uncertain. This creates a scenario where the Yankees might actually be shopping two highly regarded prospects simultaneously, using Jones as the centerpiece in a trade for Bellinger or Tucker while dangling Dominguez in separate discussions to acquire additional pieces or clear roster space. Such an aggressive approach to reshaping the roster represents a complete philosophical shift from patient development to immediate acquisition of proven major league talent. The risks inherent in this strategy are obvious, as trading away multiple top prospects could leave the farm system depleted if the veteran acquisitions don't pan out or suffer injuries. Spencer Jones finds himself at a crossroads that perfectly encapsulates the modern baseball dilemma between development and immediate contention. By all measurable standards, he's ready for the major leagues after destroying minor league pitching across 2 levels. But organizational circumstances beyond his control mean there's simply no roster spot available for him in New York. Other teams salivate at the prospect of acquiring him precisely because they can offer something the Yankees cannot: immediate playing time and a clear developmental path to becoming a cornerstone player. The power numbers Jones posted in the minors translate directly to the modern game's emphasis on home runs and extra base hits. 35 home runs between AA and AAA represents elite-level production that forecasts immediate impact at the major league level. But if the Yankees genuinely view him as expendable for the right veteran return, it reveals everything about their championship timeline and their willingness to sacrifice future potential for present-day excellence. This isn't necessarily wrong or short-sighted. It's simply a calculation that the current competitive window demands maximizing every advantage right now rather than hoping prospects develop into stars several years down the road. The optimistic scenario plays out in glorious Technicolor for Yankees fans who have waited too long for another championship parade through the Canyon of Heroes. They land either Bellinger or Tucker, plugging the most obvious hole in the roster with an established star who delivers immediately. The lineup becomes genuinely terrifying from top to bottom, with no easy outs and no ability for opposing pitchers to work around the dangerous hitters. Judge finally gets the protection he deserves, seeing better pitches to hit and driving in runs at historic rates. The young core continues developing around this veteran foundation, and Yankee Stadium hosts World Series games for the first time since 2009. The drought ends, the banners get raised, the doubters get silenced. But the cautious reality check demands consideration of all the ways this aggressive strategy could backfire spectacularly. Trading away top prospects for veterans always carries substantial risk, as countless teams have discovered through painful experience. What happens if Bellinger suffers another injury, as he has throughout his career, and misses significant time in his first season wearing pinstripes? What if Tucker struggles adapting to the American League East or finds the pressure of playing in New York overwhelming compared to Houston's more laid-back environment? What if the Yankees sacrifice their organizational future for a 2 or 3 year window that closes without producing a championship, leaving them with an aging core, a depleted farm system, and no clear path back to contention? These nightmare scenarios aren't far-fetched hypotheticals designed to create anxiety. They represent real possibilities that front offices must weigh when making these consequential decisions. Baseball history is littered with blockbuster trades that looked brilliant on paper but collapsed due to injuries, underperformance, or simple bad luck. The Yankees themselves have experienced both sides of this equation, sometimes winning trades that reshape their championship trajectory, and sometimes losing deals that set the organization back years. Looking ahead at the critical dates that will determine the entire trajectory of the 2025 season, the winter meetings loom as the most likely venue for significant movement on these discussions. This annual gathering of baseball executives, agents, and media creates a pressure cooker environment where deals that have been percolating for weeks suddenly crystallize into reality. Cashman will be working around the clock, conducting meetings in hotel lobbies and conference rooms, trying to assemble packages that satisfy Houston's asking price for Tucker, or convince Bellinger's representatives that New York offers the best combination of money and championship opportunity. The trade deadline next July could also factor into this equation in interesting ways, particularly if the Yankees acquire one of these outfielders, but still identify additional needs as they evaluate their championship credentials through the first half of the season. Having retained either Jones or Dominguez as trade chips would provide flexibility to make secondary moves at the deadline if they find themselves in genuine contention but needing that final piece to push them over the top. This kind of strategic thinking and resource management separates smart front offices from mediocre ones. Spring training will function as the ultimate laboratory for determining whether these moves translate to on-field chemistry and success. If the Yankees successfully land Bellinger or Tucker, watching them integrate with Judge, Stanton, and the rest of the core will be must-watch baseball from the first day of camp. The interactions between established stars, the development of lineup chemistry, the defensive alignments, and positional flexibility all become crucial storylines that could determine whether this team is a legitimate World Series contender or just another expensive collection of talent that fails to coalesce into something greater than the sum of its parts. The bottom line on this absolutely wild prospect trade situation is that the New York Yankees have decided to go all in on their current championship window by dangling Spencer Jones, one of their most promising young players, in trade talks aimed at landing either Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker. This represents an unmistakable organizational shift away from patient development and toward aggressive pursuit of immediate impact. Brian Cashman understands that his job security depends entirely on delivering championships, not on winning prospect rankings or developing future stars who bloom after he's been fired. He's willing to trade away future potential for present-day excellence, betting that the combination of Judge, Cole, and one of these elite outfielders creates a championship formula. Whether this strategy ultimately succeeds or fails will define the next several years of Yankees baseball and potentially determine how this era of the franchise is remembered. If they win that elusive 28th championship, trading Spencer Jones will be remembered as the bold stroke that put them over the top. If they fall short and Jones becomes a star elsewhere, this decision will haunt the organization and fuel endless second-guessing about roads not taken. Such is the high-stakes reality of managing the New York Yankees, where every decision gets magnified and every outcome generates either celebration or condemnation with no middle ground. The question facing the franchise and its passionate fan base isn't whether Spencer Jones has talent or potential. Everyone acknowledges his impressive minor league performance and his projection as a quality major league regular. The question is whether the Yankees should prioritize his development or whether they should maximize their current competitive window by trading him for an established star who can contribute immediately to championship aspirations. There's no objectively correct answer to this dilemma, only competing philosophies about how to build and sustain winning organizations in an era where competitive windows open and close with stunning speed. For Yankees fans who have endured more than a decade without championship glory, patience has worn thin. They don't want to hear about prospects developing or future competitive windows opening several years down the road. They want championships now, while Judge is in his prime and while the core pieces assembled at enormous expense should be delivering results. This impatience, while perhaps understandable from a fan perspective, creates pressure on the front office to make aggressive moves that carry substantial risk alongside their potential rewards. The baseball landscape has shifted dramatically in ways that make these decisions even more complex than in previous eras. Free agency has become less predictable, with stars sometimes taking discounts to play for preferred destinations or holding out for unprecedented contract terms. The luxury tax has created real financial consequences for high-spending teams, forcing even the Yankees to occasionally exhibit restraint. The rise of advanced analytics has changed how organizations evaluate players and construct rosters, sometimes contradicting traditional scouting wisdom. Through all these changes, the fundamental challenge remains constant: building a roster that can win in October while managing resources sustainably. The Spencer Jones trade scenario encapsulates all these modern complexities in one high-stakes decision. It forces the Yankees to weigh competing values, evaluate risk and reward, and make a definitive statement about their championship timeline. It tests ownership's financial commitment and the front office's evaluation skills. It will be judged not by intentions or process, but by results, with the harsh clarity that only championships bring to organizations with Yankees-level expectations. The coming weeks will reveal whether this bold gamble pays off or whether it becomes another cautionary tale about the perils of trading prospects for veterans in pursuit of immediate glory. So make sure you're following every development in this story as it unfolds, because the decisions made this offseason will shape Yankees baseball for years to come. Share this with every Yankees fan who needs to understand what's really at stake in these negotiations. Drop a comment with your thoughts on whether the Yankees should trade Spencer Jones for either Bellinger or Tucker, or whether they should hold on to their prospect and find another path to championship contention. And subscribe so you don't miss any updates as this wild offseason continues delivering shocking developments that nobody saw coming. This is the kind of drama that defines Yankees baseball, for better or worse, and we're all along for the ride whether we like it or not.